Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited to be here and show you this interview. Today I got to talk to Los Padres, an amazing DJ duo. They've worked with so many great artists, played awesome shows including EDC Orlando. You can check their Instagram right here. I had the amazing opportunity to talk to them and not only learn from them, but also they gave you guys feedback. They gave feedback to your music. Let's just get right into it. Awesome interview with Los Padres. Here we go. What's up, guys? Today I'm here with Los Padres. How are you doing, guys?
Good. What's going on, everybody?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Good to see you guys. This is one of them is Gino, the other one is Carlos. They both form Los Padres, a DJ duo. I'm really excited to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for being able to come and being able to be a part of this.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us. We appreciate you
having us.
Awesome. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about music, because we're all in the music industry. So let's talk a little bit about music, branding, and just mainly creating a brand and developing as an artist in general. Let's give some tips to those producers that are trying to get to where you guys are right now. We're gonna have I'm gonna ask you questions on how to develop a unique sound, getting stuck to one genre, a specific vibe, and just growing your brand in general. So to begin, how did you guys came about? How was Los Padres born? Did you guys have single careers before that? Were you guys single artists in the net and decided to go duo? How did you guys come about?
So we kind of came about through a little bit of chance and opportunity. We both had separate careers before that. I've been doing some remixing for some major labels like Atlantic, Big Beat, Def Jams, and stuff like that for the iHeartRadio platforms and Mix Show Radio. Gino has had a lot of success as well with support and playing throughout the country. And we had a mutual producer friend who just thought our projects together could really make something pretty unique and pretty awesome.
Great.
I'm more of a synthetic kind of background, and Gino is more of a classically trained musician. He's he plays the cello.
I saw that on your IG, Gino. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, so it's really cool. So when you bring those two elements together, we kind of fill the voids that each of us, find empty in our own production and stuff like that.
You kind of balance each other out in that sense.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we met through a mutual producer friend who got us together after a couple of years of trying to find a balance for one another individually.
Awesome. So let's get straight to talking about music. I'm really intrigued to know how your dynamic works as a duo. How are you able to work on tracks together, whether you're in the same room or not? And how do you begin a track? Do you have something in mind that you talk to, or do you just get inspired as you produce?
Usually with Carlos and I, we are always inspired all the time. We come from different backgrounds, as he stated before, but we love a lot of the similar sounds and music, which is a great thing. So we're always shooting each other songs and inspirational tracks that we might find, whether that be something house related or something even more melodic related. So the good thing is that we're always on each other's toes and always on new releases and stuff that really, keeps us always learning new stuff, and also sound design, which is really important for our productions as well. So something we like to keep is a melodic structure, and also something that keep up with the 2020 sounds that are going on in the production world as well. So we're always keeping each other inspired with music.
And I'm just intrigued to know how the dynamic of a duo generally works. How do you feel the fact that you're a duo helps you produce? Does it make the process slower, but maybe you push yourself creatively more, or does it make it faster because you help each other whenever you're not feeling inspired?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of like a math and law of averages. I always kind of talk about this. The more opportunities you throw at the dartboard, the more probability you have of getting a bullseye, which is that hit, right?
Yeah.
That really good collaboration or that really good network. So we both bring our assets to the table every time we kind of start something new or generate an idea. We probably exchange music on a daily basis. We exchange demos and creative ideas. This is also, with everything that's kind of going on globally, this is also an opportunity for us to rebrand in a way and kind of restructure our concept of what Los Padres is. We came out of the gate with this really urban, bass-heavy driven sound, and because of both of our backgrounds being so diverse in production, we kind of wanted to go ahead and start emulating some of that stuff. That's why some of our records are a little bit more melodic than others, or every so often it might feel like something new is happening. And it's because deeply rooted. We have Latin production backgrounds, reggaeton, mumba, you know, pop, commercial. But daily we speak about music, and daily we try to invoke some sort of opportunity for us to collaborate and get a good record out there. Yeah, it's definitely daily that we're doing that.
That's awesome. And that kind of leads up to the next question very well, because after listening to some music, I noticed that within generally the same house genre, you do vary from going from, you know, club heavy, festival heavy tracks, bass house, cool sound designs to, as you said, more melodic stuff, more commercial stuff. So I wanted to ask you, what do you feel like? Should an artist get stuck to one specific genre that ties to their brand, or do you believe in artists having the freedom to develop themselves creatively, and then maybe, you know, an audience might not like it so much because a certain types of audience want to get a specific sound from a certain artist, but, you know, even with that, just following your gut and kind of following what you want to produce rather than what people want you to produce?
As a young producer, if you're growing into your sound and you're trying to find your sound, let that be the priority first. So if you're trying to find something that inspires you, learn how to, you know, get to that point first. And then, you know, if you for example, if you're trying to go into specifically bass house, you know, research and see what other bass house producers are doing. Once you get to a certain point, whether that be an exhaustion of the genre, or, you know, you just don't feel like you can learn enough, bounce out to another genre. And then down the road, you know, 6 or 8 months from then, you start picking and choosing different elements from those genres that you're producing, because you're not really creating a tunnel vision, or you're not, you know, single laning yourself, but more creating, hey, I got a bass that I made from, you know, a Mesto bass, and then I got a Tiesto lead that I got, and you just start cross, you know, sounds and elements, and then you want, you know, there you go, you find a new genre, you know, down the road or something like that, or new sounds, and that's how new, you know, that's how new sounds are constantly found. So I definitely recommend for producers to never just, you know, stick to just one genre, and that's something that a lot of producers always find themselves like, is that something bad that we have? That's a fantastic problem to have for any producer to have. It's just to always keep yourself, you know, exploring other options and genres. And then you also feel
like the independent record as well. It's kind of like 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, if you're not building up a catalog full of different diversified, you know, music, you might miss opportunities that come into play later. Definitely for the new producer and young producer, don't box yourself in. Absolutely try to get down as many different genres as you can as far as workflow and production. You might come to find out that you thought you wanted to be this bass house producer, but you're really, really good at producing future bass. Or that your understanding of music theory might not work so much in bass house, because a lot of the sound design is accidental. You know, a lot of these things that happen are by random opportunity, especially when it comes to sound design. But in the commercial pop and all that, music has more meaning. So don't box yourself in, create opportunities, and explore other options too.
And as you've mentioned, both of you will have experience in complete different genres to what you create now with the project of Los Padres, with you, Carlos, you know, creating reggaeton and moveton, as you mentioned, and Eugenio having the classical background. You both definitely used those influences into creating the sound that you make today. So by not boxing yourselves out into like a specific genre from the very beginning, you're able to develop what you create now. So I feel like that's a good example.
Correct. Absolutely.
Awesome. So another topic that I wanted to mention and that I wanted to talk about was, so if you see all of these producers, right, are trying to make the next hit or the next big song, but all of them are given the same kind of resources, the same MIDI keyboards, the same DAWs, the same plugins, the same sounds. So you're giving kind of like the same resources. How do you come up with something different? What tips would you give to those producers to like, even though they're using the same thing that everyone else is using, how do you make something different and unique to what everyone else is making?
So my approach for that is kind of like randomizing the opportunity when it comes to like your structure. So when I produce an idea that I want to send to Gino, I know his background and I understand that he has this classical background, and I know that I want him to take this take on a break or whatever. But if I want to sound different from somebody else in the room, you've got to randomize the way you approach your production, right? So you've got to do something a little bit different. Sometimes I take melodies in different keys and I transpose them to the key that my current song is at, and I might invert my melody or I might reverse my melody. And what that does is it creates something by chance and by opportunity.
Exactly.
Just like an arpeggiator would, right? Have that same approach with your production. What can you do to randomize your production? And through that randomization, you might create something very unique that nobody else is doing. Sometimes we catch ourselves listening to people's demos and music, and we hear samples that we have come across in sample pack. What's happening is people are clicking and dragging and thinking that, well, I found this first, I might have the best chance to use it. That's not the case. The way you got to look at that is, I found this great loop, let me make it my own. Let me chop it up, let me change the sequence of it, let me change the melody. And right there, you're using the same tool, but people like Gino and I, and possibly yourself, we recognize that you went creative with it. Exactly. And that deserves to be appreciated and acknowledged. So when we hear demos from people, and to be sincere, there was an opportunity for us one time, and we heard a sample that somebody was using that we've heard before. But you have to encourage people to take those opportunities and randomize it, flip it, try to make it their own, restructure it, maybe try to reproduce that sample, and in that you create your own lane and your own stuff. We all have the same resources, but you've got to stand out. You can't think that this is a plug and play system.
That's awesome. I mean, that ties very well with like a whole nother topic, and that's like whether you should be using looped sample packs or whether you should be sound designing yourself, creating everything yourself. And I wanted to ask you what you think about it, but you've kind of already said your opinion about like what you think of it. I mean, I believe as well, I agree with you that it's fine to like go through Splice or any other loop library and use their samples, but don't get stuck to that sample. Get that sample and then push it creatively, push yourself creatively to find something.
And I have this love-hate relationship with Splice. I mean,
exactly.
I love Contact, so I'm a native instruments kind of guy. I don't classically play any string instrument, right? But I can write based on chord theory what I have in my head.
Yeah.
I generate that idea, I send it to Gino, and Gino cuts it live on the cello. Yeah. And what that does is it's humanizing what I just did on the piano. I'm not a professional guitarist, but I have a bunch of guitar loops that I can listen to over and over, and I know how to dictate my idea into this guitar.
Exactly.
Use a tuner, make sure that I'm in tune, and I reprocess what I'm hearing out of these loops. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah.
That right there, whether you're using tube amplifiers or you're using a bunch of OTT or you're using, different kind of EQ methods, you're creating your own thing that was inspired by a loop that probably 85% of all producers have heard.
Exactly.
Because we all use the same resources.
That's awesome. There's an example of a friend of mine that did something similar. Like as you mentioned, like how you don't know how to play guitar 100% well, like professional, but you can, because of your certain knowledge in the guitar, you can manipulate guitar loops. So my friend got this Splice vocal, but it was very generic. But instead of using that, he got a friend that could sing, but they both couldn't write vocals, but the friend could sing. So you get a friend to sing the same vocal as Splice, changed it up a little bit, changed up the melody a little bit, and they didn't create a vocal from scratch, but they created something different and unique that now wasn't oversaturated.
The same cadence or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
That's brilliant.
So I love the fact that we're talking about like being unique and being creative, because the next question that I wanted to ask you is, what do you think you guys did differently? A lot of people are in the place right now where they know how to produce. They know how to create that professional sound. They might not be the best mixing and mastering engineers, but they can create a good sounding track. However, they feel like they're not able to bring something different to the industries, and you guys were. So what do you guys think you did differently, both like music wise and like marketing wise in general, to create a brand that worked?
That's a question that can be answered in a lot of in a lot of different ways. I guess for something that Carlos and I pride on is branding. and sound design. And those are two very important things in 2020 that, you know, I believe a producer, among a ton of other things they should be responsible for in this, and, you know, in this age, to be carrying. But those are two things that we really, really like to work and pride and just feel like we know a lot about, but we just feel like we don't know enough about as well. So that's, you know, branding is something we're always, you know, talking about and also looking forward to. So when we first started Los Padres, the sound and the branding was one thing unified. 6 or 8 months down the road, we were already thinking about something totally different than what we had initialized as well. So something that, you know, we really like to look at as well as what other artists are doing as well, and see if, you know, like for example, Chainsmokers or other artists as well. What are they doing, and is there a reason what they're doing, all the madness? You know, for example, you know, Chainsmokers went off the grid just a little bit before what was happening on the quarantine, and Carlos and I noted that, and we were just like, why? You know, they had so much kind of going. They had a hell of a year and a hell of a couple years, but there's a reason for all it, and we were kind of you know, inspired to see what goes beyond that. So that got us thinking, you know, as well, like, what could we be doing the same thing, you know, sound wise, branding wise, you know, you name it. You know, we're always thinking of things behind the scenes to kind of keep proactive about that.
Absolutely. And that's probably the first true fact is with the branding and stuff like that. One thing that we never, this is an awesome question because sometimes we don't get to talk about it too much. The other thing is, I always hit on this, is your network pool, right? The network of reach that you have. What kind of community are you a part of? Are you in Discords, or are you just on Twitter? Are you using both of those applications plus maybe an email run, or are you trying to connect with people? Because opportunity is outside of just your great song and your great mix down, because music is subjective. Okay.
Exactly.
And you might think this record is amazing, Gino might not, and I have to respect both of you. So when I go into it, I can't be swayed by what you guys think. I got to think for myself, right? So music is subjective. All these young producers are doing fantastic things, but they're not getting it into people who can help be a voice for them, or help be put them in a position that they could succeed. So what kind of groups are you around? The other thing is like ego, right? And I talk about this all the time. Are you willing to be told that your record is not good enough yet? Are you willing to be told that some changes need to be made? Are you willing to have those opportunities granted to you? You know what I mean? And then how do you handle those situations? Because I think Gino and I have been shot down hundreds of times.
That's awesome to hear, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people would appreciate listening to.
Absolutely. I mean, and we are humble enough to say, hey guys, we've got the automated mailers back saying that it's not the time. We've got the automated mailers back that said we just don't fit. We've gotten it all. But what happened? We went back to that record and we also sent it to another label, and another label fell in love with it, because music is subjective. So if we didn't have those networks of labels or networks of A&Rs, or communicating with people who are in the industry in a certain position, like maybe working at a festival ground, if you don't contact those people and if you don't rub shoulders with them, what kind of opportunity are you really making for yourself?
Exactly.
You know, you're really only betting on your music. And it's not just that.
And the music doesn't just get viral. I mean, if your song goes viral, it's like a lottery, a complete lottery. And that's awesome. And when you were talking about it, I kind of came up with a question. How much do you think, in order to succeed, how much do you think it is music, and how much do you think is getting your ass in front of the right people, right? How much is it not just marketing, right? Not because marketing, right. I mean, I can go on Instagram and say, oh, everyone listen to my track, but how do you go and find the right people, and what percentage do you think is the perfect equilibrium?
First, you have to make sure your music is on point, because if you have an opportunity and you never know who you're rubbing shoulders with, like Carlos said, and if that person, for example, is a talent, you know, person for somewhere else in another state, and you have no idea who this person is, they could be younger than you and I, and it's just like some sort of, you know, intern or something like that. Make sure your music is always on point, because you have one shot really to make that impression. And you know, and if your music isn't on point, you know, make sure, you know, It is. Make sure I can't really emphasize how big it is. Branding is very important, but branding is also subjective, like the music as well. But in order for really people to take you serious, show your friends, show other colleagues as well. Join a Discord and start showing other people's as well. And please be open to constructive criticism, because that's the only way you're ever going to grow. And once you hit that certain point, and a lot of producers always ask us, when are you going to be ready? That when you feel like you are, that's when you can start rubbing shoulders and going out. And that's, we could take a step back from production and sort of, taking that introvert and being a little bit of an extrovert, I suppose.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely 50-50.
One second, Carlos. 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. So, to conclude, what you said, would you agree that music comes first? So getting the music comes first, and then after that, marketing and connections come. So would you agree that a producer maybe focuses, let's say, a year on creating 4 really great tracks, and then the next year he focuses on just promoting them? Or do you feel like they both come at the same time?
It's tough, because it's tough to really say that, but in my experience, and I could maybe speak for a little bit of Carlos. Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to make sure, because we're in a generation right now where producers are constantly coming into the game with samples that barely need to be processed, and singers that, whoever, and they could create a song in seconds, and they're confident enough, just because they have much more confidence in you, but you might have a much more better musical idea than their song, but you just didn't produce it just well enough. Make sure you work on your craft just a little bit longer or a little bit more than you would, than you can present or showcase that to somebody else. So I would just say, hold tight, make sure you got like 5 or 6 demos on a USB, complete structured ones that you feel very confident in, and then proceed to the next chapter.
Yeah. What
Sure.
were you gonna say, Carlos?
Yeah, so Miami Music Week 2019, Gino and I got together. We rented out a studio in Miami, and all it was to really just kind of showcase some stuff, talk about music, and he and I to really get an opportunity to be part of this opportunity that Miami has every year. Well, Here we go. We find out that the engineer in the room is a multi-Grammy award-winning producer, engineer, from Eminem to house music to all these things. Really good guy. I don't know if I should name him, but he knows who he is, so shout out to him. And what happened? We ended up going through our catalog, right? So you mentioned 4 good records. Bro, we went through probably 60 records, okay? And we went through them, and some of them he loved, some of them he hated, and we took that energy and we created another catalog. So we went from those 60 demos and we created a 25 to 30 demo playlist that we only shot those records, because we had the subjective opinion of a Grammy award-winning engineer, producer, who had put ears to that. So what am I getting at? It's 50-50, right? Your music has to be on point. You don't know who you're gonna meet. But if and when you get the opportunity to meet that person, you've got to be ready to fly, right? So we took his criticisms, we created this playlist, and that's what we shot for about 6 months. And I would say 50% of those records got signed. But it took 60 demos, right?
Forever.
It took 60 demos to maybe get, 10, 20 placements? So do the math, the law of average, for every 100, you're probably only gonna get 10. And you gotta be okay with that. But if you're producing only 10 records a year, you maybe will get 1.
Yeah. That's
so
awesome.
think about it that way.
I heard an interview by Don Diablo where they were calling him oh, you're so talented and that, and he mentioned how, yes, he created awesome tracks, but he also mentioned how many shitty tracks he created and how many non-successful tracks he created. The guy is old. I mean, relatively old within the industry, so he's been on it for forever. And he says he began making music when he was 14, and he was making a track a month or a track a week. If you count on the number of tracks that he did. Yeah, I feel like that's a very good point actually to move to the feedback session, because we were talking about how music is important stuff. I feel like right now is a very good point to move to the feedback session and listen to the people that reached out and heard their tracks.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to when I know that we had was right here, right now, and a handful of plans. We didn't have to go and spend every day bored in the classroom with all of our friends. Whoa, forever was the summer away. it's never gonna be the same. I'm thinking about you now and wonder where you went or if you're still around. It's true, the time's passing by. Tomorrow's just a day before we realize you. I'm thinking about you now and wonder where you went or if you're still around. It's true, the time's passing by. Tomorrow's just a day before we realize.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, so awesome vocal, right? So it says featuring
it,
Mo
yeah.
Rice. So we've got to assume that that's an original vocal, not just some splice.
I heard some of his music before, and he has worked with other singers before. So I'm assuming he might have worked with More Rice.
It's written and arranged awesome. On the drop, being that I could hear an acoustic slap bass in there is something that I love. See, so somebody took something organic and they made it work with dance music.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of this one. I give this 2 thumbs up for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have to agree with Carlos that from the minute I heard the vocal, it grabbed my attention instantly. The arrangement is fantastic. I think the drop is so smooth. Like Carlos said, that bass just feels so good and organic. Yeah, I would listen to this just riding in my car. I really would. This is a very, very good track.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Listen to that one.
Rave Jack, smash man.
Getting animal vibes from this.
1, 2, 3, let's go.
Big song.
Okay, dope.
Ooh.
All right. So I get animal vibes from that, you know, the Martin Garrix big room type of feel at the intro and stuff like that. The drop with the stabs, I would probably come in with a filter so that that way it's progressively building you up. You got to keep creating that tension. The song's great overall, definitely a festival record. And for me personally, if I'm doing a 4 to the floor type of cadence, I want to counter my first 8-bar melody, right? So because what happens, everybody knows that it's going to hit this second 8-bar or you're going to drop into a break.
Uh-huh.
How do you keep the listener listening without skipping your record? You've got to change that melody from, if it's 16 bars, it cannot mirror each other, right? So you've got to take this ass end of that break, of that drop, and change up those notes, change up the voicing of the notes, keep it in the same key, and have it respond to the first half of the drop. That way it makes me want to continue listening and I can't predict what's going to come next.
I love that. Yeah, I love that advice, because I feel like a lot of producers sometimes get stuck with like copy pasting a lot. Like they do like a 4-bar loop and they just copy and paste it and arrange it really quick. And you shouldn't be scared of like actually digging in and changing stuff around. 100% agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So I get main stage W&W vibes. That's definitely what I'm feeling when I hear this, and that's for me and where I come from and my backgrounds. I love that. I'm a huge big room, trance guy from the 2014 days. So I'm a huge fan of that. Something I can recommend just from experience in this. When the drop hits for something like this, I would don't know if if you've noticed in the W&W, back in the days how they would produce their stuff on the drops, it was like a syncopated reverb sidechain almost, where it's like, and that's something I could here, and for something like this, where I feel like it would definitely fill in some of the space in the drop. And it's something you could just put on like your reach. I don't know what DAW program you're using for this one, but for example, if you're using Ableton, you put this on like a return, put a reverb, side chain it to your leads, and then you can put a glue compressor on top of that as well, and that's something kind of fills in for the drop. And also one thing I could recommend for this to kind of fill it out and really bring it together is sort of like a, if you just reference some of the older, any of the main stage tracks, they have like vocal chops that they use, but not like a full loop. They'll use just like something kind of at the end of the 4-bar or an 8-bar, and that's something that Carlos is getting at for the counter melodies. You can use that same melody that you get, but just use a vocal that you have or a vocal chop or something like that. And that's something all the main stage guys uses, is like fills or something like that for, it's something to kind of fill it out.
Yeah, we're targeting attention span here, right?
Exactly,
so like we're there is a psychology to this, right? So you got me for 30 seconds. How are you going to keep me for 2 minutes? You know what I mean?
Especially nowadays, where people are like listening to songs and they're barely listening for over a minute sometimes, especially not just people that listen to demos, but general like audience in general, songs are getting shorter and shorter, and it's more about grabbing people's attention rather than enjoying a song.
If you guys ever get to see us live, we go through about 40 songs in an hour set. We're like that, you know what I mean? So we want to keep people engaged, and that's how we kind of take the approach for music production.
All right. Let's move on to Extinctor.
Just walk away. All right.
Sometimes I need a phone call, but you are still don't answer. You break my heart in pieces, but you don't care now. You still don't care now. I don't wanna fight, baby, I'm just fine. I don't need you anymore. I don't need a friend, 'cause I have enough. I don't need you anymore. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away. You can walk away. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away. You can walk away. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away. You can walk away. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away. You can walk away. Please just walk away. Baby, please just walk away.
Yo, wow.
That's a
This
pretty
is a
cool
great
track.
record. It's a great record because it's that commercial house, which is because of quarantine, right? Nobody's in front of these main stages that much,
Exactly.
right? So with quarantine, people want to get emotional with the music. They're probably listening by themselves, or they're listening with a small group of friends. This is an awesome record. The thing that does it for me is the chorus, the hook of the record fits perfect with the drop of the record. So people are going to sing during that part.
I love that little trick where you let people sing in the drop, either copy the melody of the chorus or
absolutely
vocal
please
chops.
don't walk away. Boom, that's all you need. And then those stabs, those future bass kind of stabs, they're hitting the chord of that voice. So very, very smart producer right there. The intro with the guitar, kind of like what we were discussing, feels organic. And you've got this Millennium type Chainsmokers idea. Yeah. And this is great. I'd sign this record.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, it's real hard to give any sort of constructive criticism to this, man. This is something I'd bop once again on my free time. Something I really, really let me see here. I'm listening to this again. It's such a really good record. I don't know. Yeah, I'd say the small things that you add in the, what Carlos was saying during the record are so huge. The little arps, those little fillers that you put in this track, ear candy, if you will. Those things are absolutely massive, especially in future pop records like this. One thing I would want to add on here, though, I don't know if it's coming up to the drop, or sorry, in the drop. Some of your fills are a little bit they're a little bit, I think, more filtered out. So I would bring them out more at their drums. So I would just bring these drums out in the fills, and also for your bass, for your build up, if you would want to even put a band pass, it kind of spice up your build, because I felt like it was a little muffled with the bass and the build up. But if you maybe like put a band pass through that just a little bit, don't even take the muffle out, just put a band pass through that to spice it up. I mean, these are nitpicky things that we're going at right here, but this is such a great track. Yeah,
I would say this other thing. Take your response, the chanting, "Hey," take that out of the same octave of your vocal, right? Because then it sounds like she's running on and saying that as well.
Yeah.
Bring it a seventh or a fifth or an entire octave down, so it feels like two different things. Because right now it feels like one person is doing that.
You would want it to feel like like a different person said the hey.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we call that ear candy, and we want to take them out of the same octave or key, right? So that you have more like, oh wow, I like this part, and that's how you can kind of diversify your candy.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure he's gonna be happy.
Good job.
Knowing that he's trying. This track is great. Awesome. Let's move to the next one. Rebio, Take Control.
Let's go.
All right.
I think he played that in the Retrovision Twitch live stream.
Nice. We're supported by Retrovision.
Watch me take control.
We were talking here about the like vocal detail. I think that well.
This one has a lot. Oh yeah. This has a lot of those vocal fills and that ear candy.
I think that Gino mentioned the vocal chop in the fourth measure.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Another thing is the audio cutoff detail. So that volume automation, right? It feels really stabby. There's no reverb there. It like, that's awesome. And his chord selection, there's a lot of tension, right? So they're not like your predictable chord, you know what I mean? And then he's got the pitch bend throughout. So I'm a fan of that for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of this. This is one of my favorite genres of house right now, is the whole future bounce, future house genre. Something I wrote some notes here. For the drop, I am a huge fan of the drop. Like you said, the chords are really great, very tensionful. There's just a couple empty spaces here that listen to some of Retrovision's tracks. He uses that ARP, those little saw ARPs that he uses. I think he makes them even in silent. They're just very easy things. And, even some of the sample pack fillers that you can go and just kind of take that and fill those in the end of those fills in the drop. But other than that, I mean, this is a really great track. I love this a whole lot. I like what you did in the breakdown as well. You kept the kick in there, and just, it just keeps punching throughout the whole track. And I'm definitely a fan of this for sure.
I love how he like automated the build up, so it like goes quieter and quieter and almost like more mono. And then the drop just exploded. Almost like he was almost like he just took the master fader and put it up now. But like he used these little details and made it explode louder.
Right. So to all my Ableton users out there, slap that utility in there, bring it back, bring that mono down, make it a little bit mono before your drop. I mean, and start cutting that stuff off early,
Logic has the exact same utility as Ableton too.
Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Any DAW, the science is the same, right? So, you could be watching tutorials for anything and they can relate with everything. I mean, I like how he climbed, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And it ended on a note that's in that scale, right? So it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong there. It actually it does belong there, but you just didn't expect it. And that's what I was trying to say with the other records. there's things happening that I did not know or expect. I couldn't predict that pitch bend to come. I couldn't predict, certain notes to be played in that cadence. That is what draws me into listening to a record in its total length.
Awesome.
I once heard right before we finish this. I once heard that a lot. A big good drop is 80% rhythm and 20% melody. I don't know how much I believe of that, but the more that I'm producing, the more I realize that rhythm is absolutely massive. Even if you keep the same 2 chords, you can make those work in just different rhythm bases, and that comes with bass lines. That comes with stabs. I'm sorry, not stabs. Any sort of chord work that you have. So something to add on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw a Jonas Aiden video, and he said that when he began his drops, sometimes he begins different ways, but he said that a lot of times he begins with a groove. So he just starts on a kick, 4 to the floor kick, and then starts messing around with like bass tabs, but also like percussion. And then once he has like a cool groove where he feels like the thing is bouncing, it's moving on somewhere, then he starts adding his chords, his vocal chops, or whatever he chooses. So
I'm going to give you a monumental tip here, okay, on the way that I kind of go about it, talking about Jonas Aiden's The Groove. All right, so you have a hand clap that goes, right? People think that they want to clip that hand clap loop into their drums to provide that groove. Take that clap, export the groove to MIDI, and now that's your synth groove. That's your synth cadence. Not a lot of people do that. And trust me, when people figure that out and they can extract grooves from drums to be their top melodies or their counter melodies, trust me, it's literally a mind-blowing moment, okay? Because people want the grooves in their drums, but you can have groove in your melodies.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a really great trick.
Yeah.
Ableton. No, I'm just kidding.
Ableton, yeah. I'm a Logic user, but I do use Ableton quite often, and I love the whole groove section and string section of like Ableton. I feel like that's something that works really well, and I feel more comfortable using the Ableton than Logic. I mean, I'm the kind of guy that thinks that every DAW, is great and stuff, but there's little details, that make one DAW.
We use Logic, Fruity Loops, and Ableton. We ride Ableton. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we use them all. And then when we do anything in the studio with the singer, so obviously we usually cut on Pro Tools.
That's awesome. Well, let's end the interview there. I feel like we heard 5 great songs. You guys gave some great feedback, and we got some great insights on your perspective on the music industry, your story, and some great tips. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure people will appreciate it a lot. And thanks for being here and being able to be part of my YouTube channel, my interviews kind of podcast. And I hope people can learn a lot from you guys.
Thanks for having us, man. Hopefully we can be back soon, okay?
Awesome. All right. Thank you, guys.
Right.
Peace.
Take care, buddy.
Take care.
Right.
Peace.
Thanks for watching, guys. I personally really enjoyed talking to them. Super nice people, super down to earth, and at the same time really experienced within the music industry. Me personally, I learned so much from them as an artist, and I hope you also learned. And if you also learned, let me know. It's really important for me to get feedback from you to know what kind of content you like and how I can improve. So yeah, if you like the content, subscribe below, and I'll see you next time.